I'm Dr. Abhirami, postgraduate resident ICH. I'm here to represent my team where we had an experience with a child for the past 1 year. That was such a rollercoaster experience for the past 1 year in our wards. So what ultimately satisfied his fiercely brain? We had a 5-year-old developmentally normal male child who was third born to a non-consanguineous marriage parents. He was referred to us on day 6 of illness from private hospital as a case of febrile status epilepticus suspected to have a viral meningitis. The child had one episode of GTCS lasting for 20 minutes that is associated with high-grade fever spike, which was not associated with chills and rigor. Ruling out drugs, toxins, metabolic parameters, and recent vaccination, there was one significant history in the past where the child had a history of chickenpox lesions 3 months back. The lesions resolved in 5 days without hospitalization or treatment. The child was extensively evaluated there, where the counts show neutrophilic leukocytosis with normal RBC and platelet counts. CRP was reactive. Metabolic parameters are within normal limit. Blood and urine cultures were sterile. Chest X-ray was normal. COVID RT-PCR was negative. The CSF analysis showed a clear colorless fluid. All the other parameters are within normal limit except for CSF proteins, which was slightly elevated. The CSF cultures were sterile and no viral markers were detected, and the TB workup of the CSF was also negative. The MRI, which was taken on the day 2 of illness, showed a mild T2 or flare hyperintensity, which is more in favor of a post-ictal changes that is involving the right side inferior frontal gyrus. The EEG on day 2 of illness was also not favorable, where it showed an occasional burst of sharp wave discharges, otherwise normal. So further course in the hospital before referral was that child was treated empirically as a case of acute CNS infection with antibacterial and the antiviral therapy. The seizures, since were not controlled by first-line agents, it has to be escalated to second-line anti-epileptic therapy. In view of persistent high-grade fever spikes and recurrent seizures, child was referred to ICH. So on receiving at ICH, child was lethargic and febrile, well-built and nourished with age-appropriate anthropometry. Except for the sinus tachycardia in response to temperature, child is hemodynamically stable. CNS examination revealed an intact higher mental functions. Cranial nerves, motor, sensory, cerebellar, and autonomic systems were normal. No signs of meningeal irritation. Fundus examination was normal. Other systems were normal. In view of persistent high-grade fever spike, we had to repeat all the other fever workup again. The counts were still neutrophilic leukocytosis. CRP was reactive but still falling in trend. Urine and blood cultures were sterile. Serology for the tropical infections was also negative. In view of persistent high-grade fever spikes and the recurrent seizures, we have to escalate the antibiotic therapy and we have to escalate the anti-epileptic therapy. And the child was still evaluated the causes for recurrent seizures. On day 10 of illness, we found something worrisome for the child. The mother started noticing some sorts of abnormal behavior where the child had episodes of inappropriate laughter. The child also had difficulty in walking. This is the video of the child before the onset of the illness, where you can find no neurological deficit and the motor domains were normal. This is a video of the child on day 10 of illness, where you can notice slight walking abnormality. There was no limping and there was no ataxia, but there is slight walking difficulty, and child was not able to sustain his walking for a prolonged period of time. On day 11 of illness, there was episodes of lethargy alternating with episodes of irritability. Child was not taking oral feeds properly. Child is not able to walk or not able to sit without support. The further course of child was very worrisome. The day 12 of illness, child had history of irritability, not able to recognize mother, not able to sit without support associated with loss of head control, history of insomnia. There was multiple episodes of seizure activity, which was responding to the anti-epileptic therapy. The neurological examination revealed major deterioration in the higher mental functions with an episodes of abnormal behavior, mutism, and insomnia. This is the video of the child on day 12 of illness. You can notice the abnormal choreoathetoid type of movements. This is the video of the child on day 12 of illness, where you can also notice the orolingual dyskinesia. So it is time for the team to redefine the diagnosis, since the clinical presentation was not contributed to the earlier CSF analysis. So keeping in the mind of autoimmune encephalitis, we have to reevaluate the CSF, neuroimaging, and the EEG to favor the diagnosis of autoimmune encephalitis. So what is autoimmune encephalitis? It is a disorder where there is antibodies against the neuronal surface proteins and the synaptic receptors. The presentation includes broad spectrum of symptoms which was all fitting in for the child. The CSF neuronal antibodies would be a confirmatory for the diagnosis of the disease. So child was fitting into the first two clinical criteria of autoimmune encephalitis. So we had to proceed with the further CSF analysis. CSFs were sent for autoimmune encephalitis panel. Meanwhile, the child was started on first-line therapy with injection methylprednisolone, and all the other symptomatic therapy was continued. The MRA, which was done on day 12 of illness, showed the same post-ictal changes, which was still in the resolving stage. But the EEG on day 12 was still confirmatory, where you could see a diffuse delta activity, which is more in favor of an autoimmune encephalitis. To our surprise, we had the anti-NMDA receptor, which is strongly positive for this in the CSF analysis, confirming the diagnosis of an autoimmune encephalitis. So, fitting into the criteria for autoimmune encephalitis, we proceeded with the further treatment with immunotherapy. Meanwhile, the malignancies have also been ruled out. So on day 5 of methylprednisolone, the response of the child was not adequate, where the irritability, abnormal behavior, insomnia, motor and the language deficit persists. So we had to proceed with IVIG. Still, post-IVIG, we were not happy with the response, where there is no improvement in the control of seizures. Slight improvement in head control was noted, but that was inadequate. Irritability, violent behavior continued to be the same, and insomnia persisted. This is the video of the child post-IVIG. So having a definitive diagnosis of autoimmune encephalitis made, we have proceeded to the second line therapy after ruling out the possibilities of HIV and HCV, hepatitis B by serology, and ruling out BCG and ruling out TB infections. So we have properly pre-medicated the child, and we have started the child on rituximab at a dose of 750 mg per meter square, given as an infusion over 6 hours. What we expected was control of seizures and control of abnormal movements. But what happened was something we have not expected for. Child started developing a refractory status epilepticus that is requiring a midazolam infusion that is associated with the new onset high-grade fever spikes. Meanwhile, the child was tested again for a fever work where the COVID-19 RT-PCR was turned out to be positive. So the further course in the COVID ward was that child had a very mild COVID disease where the CT chest was also found to be normal, and child was afebrile after 3 days. Child was treated symptomatically at the COVID ward and discharged after 2 weeks with swab negativity. So course of the child later for the next 6 months, where we have to monitor the child for the CD19 and the CD20 levels. CD19 and CD20 levels were appropriately in control. So we planned for the second dose of IVIG. Still with no response was noted, we had to proceed with the second dose of rituximab as well. Post second dose of rituximab and the second dose of IVIG, after 6 months of treatment, the seizure control was adequate and the child was able to take oral feeds. But the child was not able to recognize mother, and child had motor and the language neuroregression persisting. So we had to proceed with our next second line therapy, cyclophosphamide injections. As a pulse therapy for 6 to 9 months was planned. Every dose of cyclophosphamide was proceeded after ruling out the toxicity of cyclophosphamide with counts, metabolic parameters and urine routine being normal. So after the first and second dose of cyclophosphamide, child is able to recognize mother and child is able to follow light. Child was able to sit without support. However, the mutism persisted. This is the video of the child after the second dose of cyclophosphamide. So we proceeded with the third and the fourth doses, where after the fourth dose, child is able to walk independently and able to take feeds on his own. Child is able to produce incomprehensible sounds. This is the video of the child after the fourth dose of cyclophosphamide. And with the good response, we proceeded with the fifth and sixth dose of cyclophosphamide. You can see the video of the child after 6th dose of cyclophosphamide. So what I have to conclude from the presentation is that Early diagnosis and treatment of an autoimmune encephalitis. So any developmentally normal child coming with a new onset recurrent multiple episodes of seizures and in behavioral abnormality should be evaluated for autoimmune encephalitis as early as possible, because the early initiation of treatment can be a better prognosis for the outcome of the disease. And the second point is to emphasize how COVID pandemic can influence or affect the treatment process. We had a delay in the process because of the difficulty in arranging for the IVIG. And the third point is that to emphasize on the perseverance and the consistent efforts. It took us 1 year for the child to bring from that level to show such an improvement like this. Some case of autoimmune encephalitis can respond to methylprednisolone, but some cases can respond to rituximab. But that is not the case in our scenario. It took us 6 doses of cyclophosphamide to ultimately calm down his fierce brain. So autoimmune encephalitis, in the case of autoimmune encephalitis, the perseverance and the clinical efforts can definitely bring a clinical improvement in the child. Thank you so much. Nothing but happy faces. Thank you, one and all.